I want to try to illustrate this another way. Consider that even in the law, Numbers chapter 6, a portrait of extraordinary consecration was the Nazarites. The Nazarites, as you know, were those, it was a general invitation. It wasn't just the priesthood, but they could adopt a priestly level of consecration. The Nazarites, the vow was marked by a threefold commitment. Don't cut your hair, don't drink or touch the fruit of the vine, the grapes, don't touch a dead body. And under a Nazarite vow, you are committed to an extraordinary consecration for a purpose or a task. And the Nazarites were kind of the Navy SEALs of ancient Israel. They were the elite militia of holiness, if you will, in times of waywardness or apostasy. God would inevitably move by His Spirit and stir up the hearts of Nazarites, and they would commit themselves with great consecration, utter consecration to the purpose of God. But even the law, as it relates to Nazarites, confirms that touching dead things forfeits holiness. The consecrated ones, the Nazarites, were forbidden to touch those things, and touching them ended the period of their consecration. If they drank the fruit of the vine, if they cut their hair, or they touched a dead thing. Well, I'm just going to concentrate on touching the dead thing. What is that picture telling us? I started out with this idea of how to live with a clean conscience. And part of the challenge, I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in the next section, but part of the challenge is living with a clean conscience is we're continually combated by the awareness of sin that is part of our routine. In the law, it was the constancy of the sacrifices. By virtue of the continual nature of sacrifices, the people were always reminded of their sin. So there's something there that the law is keeping in front of us that's very different than Jesus, who said it's finished and sat down. Similarly, another kind of angle on that is the Nazarite who consecrated himself couldn't return to the dead thing. It actually ended his consecration. Now we're going to look at several passages that describe the action of God in the cross and how you are brought into Christ as killing your old man, as bringing your Adamic nature to death on the cross in Christ. And out of that, if we don't touch that thing again, we can live in perpetual consecration. But if we are continually reminded, and we have all kinds of, I went over a number of ways, we remind ourselves of sin, of the sin nature, of the tools and devices by which we try to manage our sin nature. And all we do is keep it right in front of us. But Paul says there's a problem with that. You're going to behold what you become. So by beholding the problem of my sin all the time, is it any wonder that I continue to struggle with it? Then I try to fix it by giving myself to extraordinary labor or effort again, but very often in doing so, I'm just returning as a Nazarite, touching the dead thing. I've got to leave the dead thing behind. The Nazarites would enter into a period of consecration after which it would end, but as a portrait of the potential of a consecrated life. You can't return to the thing that has been killed inside you. You can't try to lay your hands on it and fix it or attend to it. Nazarite vows ended the moment the dead body was touched, no matter how precious the person was to them. Don't see that as simply acts of sin, as if the touching was the sin that broke the vow. Instead, see the image this way: the one who wishes to be consecrated, having such a mindfulness and familiarity as to remind them and draw them back to their intimate connection to their old life. That's how we return. And in the process, we continually stay in a mode of familiarity with the very thing that the Lord has brought to death inside of us and is seeking to bring new life out of us. That interaction serves no purpose except to defile the one that touches it. Perhaps I should have called this How Not to Live with a Clean Conscience. It's probably the more accurate description for this cluster of messages. How not to live with a clean conscience. It is to keep before you the very thing you seek to avoid.